our next speaker is someone who's definitely going to go down in the books of the history of blockchain, because this person was there, he was one of the initial catalysts to the conceptualization of Ethereum. And he is now the CEO and founder of Æternity. Please welcome Mr. Yanislav Malahov.
Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here in front of you today. It's the first time I'm in India. Arrived yesterday, and so far it's been really great. So today I'm going to talk. Today I'm going to talk about Æternity Blockchain, the ecosystem, and the decentralized future, how I imagine it, and some use cases. So first, a little bit about myself. I got mentioned that I'm the godfather of Ethereum. I published a blog post called The Godfather of Ethereum with a chat log which I had with Vitalik early on in the days before Ethereum. But first, a little bit more background history. So my studies were computer science and economics, and I went into startups, and I thought we would need to have a currency in an online community. So there's a general need to have currencies, digital currencies in online communities. And I Googled, through my background, I knew there would be cryptography involved, and I Googled for cryptocurrency. I found Bitcoin, found the Bitcoin magazine, went to become a blockchain entrepreneur in late 2012, and I eventually hired Vitalik to work with me on a colored coin wallet project. In the chat log, you can see how essentially the idea developed to have updatable algorithms, as I called them, on blockchains. So essentially not to hard code once the protocol by the core developers, but rather be more flexible and have like the user define its protocol as a smart contract, essentially. 1 or 2 days later, Vitalik started writing the Ethereum white paper, and yeah, I guess the rest is history. So I'm generally quite involved in communities like the Liechtenstein blockchain community. We started there a co-working space as well as the Sofia crypto community. I started the blockchain meetup there a couple years ago. And this is Liechtenstein. So Liechtenstein is essentially where Æternity Blockchain started with the creation of a company which did a token sale in 2017 in April till June. And we raised a good amount of funds to fund the development and the ecosystem building of Æternity Blockchain. So to our opening party or events, you see me here on stage together with our partner for the House of Blockchain co-working space. The Prime Minister of Liechtenstein, he came to have also a speech. So this country is really open and forward-thinking to blockchain technology, not just private, but also public blockchain technology. In Liechtenstein, it started, we created a company, we raised the funds, sold tokens. Then we need to hire more people. Like we tried to hire the best developers in the space, and we kind of succeeded, meaning we hired 4 people who have co-created programming languages in the past, which are still in use, in productive use today, such as one of the co-creators of Erlang, Robert Werding, the sole creator of Agda, which is a language for formal verification. In the Tezos talk, this got explained more. And also the project manager of the Scala project, well, it was created in Paris, and the company of the co-creator of Haskell. So you see here's a pattern, functional programming. This is how we think it should be done. And through functional programming, You can write safer, faster, and I think more beautiful code, and then also use in an easier way formal methods. So our core developer team has more than 200 years of total programming experience. Like when Erlang got created, I was born. It's a battle-proven technology for the telecommunication industry, and I'm going to talk a lot later. But essentially, from this small team, Æternity grew to a global network of people who are involved. We have ambassadors in 40 plus countries. We have also here our Indian ambassador, Ashish. I think he's over there. And yeah, actually Mumbai is not even on the map here, so this is maybe not up to date. But the community is growing, and it's not just ambassadors, it's also startups and lawyers, designers, developers. We got them all, I mean, not all, but the biggest event which we organized so far was the Æternity Universe 1 conference, where we got the significant piece of the ecosystem together to present each other the progress of the different things each of us is working on. And all the talks are on YouTube if you're interested to watch more detailed talks, for example, about the virtual machine or about the smart contract language or about essentially any aspect of Æternity Blockchain, as well as of the startups which are building on Æternity Blockchain. Check them out on YouTube. I mentioned the startups, and for startups there's a special partner in the ecosystem, Æternity Ventures, which launched the Starfleet program for the first time in Sofia almost 2 years ago now, or 1.5 years ago. And it's an acceleration program for entrepreneurs and developers. The second round just happened in Malta, which is also a very well-known blockchain hub. And the third round is going to happen in India. So the applications right now, you can apply to essentially become part of the Starfleet, receive mentoring, receive investment, receive help. Really, it's a case-to-case thing, but lots of things like, for example, how to pitch properly in public. There are very, very well-known methodologies, and we're gonna teach them to you, or the Starfleet people are going to teach them to you. Tomorrow is going to be a talk by Luka Sucic. He is over there. He is the head of the Starfleet, and you can learn more details about the Starfleet program, how to get accelerated with your project to build a great user application on Æternity Blockchain. Another player in the ecosystem, which meanwhile developed, is the Æternity Crypto Foundation Liechtenstein. I'm wearing the t-shirt of it today. Its motto is transforming society one block at a time. So we really believe that blockchain technology is a game changer. Like, the society in the future will be organizing itself in a different way than it's doing now. It will be probably very different, and probably nobody really has imagined how it's going to look like. And the Æternity Crypto Foundation gives out grants to developers and also community builders. For example, the ambassador program, the Æternity Crypto Foundation is behind. So if you're a great developer and if you want to do something alternative to essentially receive funding, is to go to the Æternity Crypto Foundation. One step back, why do we need blockchain? Just to remind you that here we are talking about the real blockchain, the decentralized, secure, public, open source blockchain technology. So not a private consortium, proof of stake, theory thing. No, a real public good, I would even call it. Something where everybody has access to, where everybody can participate in the coding or in the, let's say, use to do transaction. And this will bring unprecedented transparency and all public aspects of society. So for example, I think tax money should be on blockchains, publicly verifiable, transparent. There's over 1 billion people in this country, and I think everybody knows that corruption is a big problem here for the economy. So blockchain will probably also help here if it gets implemented in the correct way. At the same time, don't forget, I think individuals should remain private. So they should not be fully transparent, also not transparent to the government, the individuals. This is very important. So what is Æternity Blockchain? It's a next generation, scalable, decentralized, open source blockchain platform for even more smart contracts and apps. We worked in the past, and we're still working on this, but we launched our mainnet, and can say that we have definitely improved these things. So scalability is one aspect which we really worked a lot on. I'm going to talk a little bit about the FATES, the Fast Eternity Transaction Engine, the Bitcoin NG consensus, stage channels. Then also the governance is very important. For example, Bitcoin and Ethereum has no integrated governance system, so it's essentially not really possible to understand what the people who have tokens, opinion they have. And there have been some attempts to launch voting programs, but it's not been integrated from the beginning, and they have all had like adoption issues. So we think weighted delegated voting is the way forward, and in the future also prediction markets to make it possible to essentially create a market around decisions or future events, and this way be able to predict the future somewhat, to some degree, and make collectively better decisions. The efficiency is also one aspect which Erlang is really helpful, which we improved a lot. So we claim we have maybe even the highest amount of transactions timestamped on a public blockchain, over 117 transactions per second inside a block. So if you have another blockchain, like if you can show me a proof on a public blockchain with more transactions, please do. I'm really curious to see, because there have been so many numbers like flowing or floating around, like huge claims, theoretical claims, but essentially no proof on a public blockchain network in a decentralized way. The integration with real-world data is another really important topic, which we improved a lot, to the integration of the oracles even into the smart contract language. Sophia is a new smart contract language. Mentioned it's a functional language, and generally becomes easier to write faster, safer code and use also formal methods. The usability is another aspect. What's super important to improve generally in all the blockchain ecosystem. One step forward here is to use a naming system instead of cryptic hashes or public keys to address identities on the network. We, with the last hard fork, the Eternity naming system, the .chain namespace got launched, and the public auction now is running to essentially determine a fair value for the names at the beginning. Also, we think the mobile-first approach is super critical for the adoption of blockchain technology. Most of the people are using more phones today than laptops or desktops, including me. I'm most of the time mobile and not sitting like this. I mentioned Erlang, that it's a battle-proven language written or created for fault-tolerant distributed systems, and we really don't regret that we chose this functional programming paradigm as essentially the way to build the system. Sophia language is a smart contract language, and we designed it according to these three principles: that the contract execution should be safe, contract execution should be efficient and scale, and third, contract execution should be cheap. So Sophia is a ML dialect, like OCaml, or like Facebook's Reason, or like F# from Microsoft, or like SML, standard meta language, which I learned at the university in Munich. And it's a functional language, I mentioned it. And I'm going to show you a few examples, one of the most simple examples. But first also, it's a strongly typed language. So it's very important for the security. So at compile time, you will know that you did a mistake. The compiler will be able to warn you. And it has a restricted mutable state, but it has a state where you can write in a very well-defined way. Here's a simple storage contract where the state is your record with an int inside. You see the setter and the getter and the initialization. Here's an even more simple storage contract where essentially the state is just one int. All this runs on the Fate, which got newly developed also from scratch. So all the technologies here we're talking about got developed from scratch in Erlang, the Fate as well. It's a new virtual machine which abstracts on a higher level than the typical, rather traditional lower bytecode virtual machines such as the EVM used in other platforms, and also enables you to write safer, easier code with faster transactions and a smaller code size. So the higher level bytecode is 10 times more space efficient than EVM compatible or similar type of bytecode. And 10 times is a huge efficiency upgrade. This means the transactions are smaller, the blockchains are smaller, transactions propagate faster through the network reaches to a consensus. It's pretty huge. The people who were working on this, there were these experts I mentioned earlier who have serial experience in creation of programming language and virtual machines. State channels are the main way how we think Æternity Blockchain is going to scale. So state channel is kind of like the most simple sidechain. Actually, let me ask, who knows or who knows what a state channel is here in this audience? Okay, like 2, 3, 4 people, 5 maybe. Maybe a few more. A state channel is kind of like the most simple sidechain. So it's just between two parties, two entities on a blockchain. They lock in AE tokens, Æternity tokens into a smart contract, into a channel with a smart contract, with an optional smart contract. The smart contract can stay private by default. The two participants in the state channel can essentially transact an infinite amount of transaction in between each other. And every state update gets signed by both parties. So every time there's a transaction, both parties need to have some communication. Everything is encrypted here by default. And usually there's no disagreement with the participants of a contract. So if you, for example, also write a paper contract, you would probably also just share it with the people who are participating in the contract. You would not just publish it on the global blockchain. This does not necessarily make sense, but in case there's a disagreement about the state of the smart contract, which is inside the state channel, then you can go to the public, essentially publish the last signed state of the contract, as well as the smart contract code, and then the blockchain runs it and gets to the same result as if your counterparty had cooperated according to the smart contract rules. And obviously, it's way more efficient if you don't need to write every time to the blockchain in case you just have a one transaction. So the state channels again are the most simple sidechain. So in the future, we're also working on virtual state channels. So essentially doing hops over nodes in a virtualized way, so that you don't even notice that you're hopping and as a smart contract developer. And in the future, probably there will be also like private consortium side chains with arbitrary consensus mechanism where they can then exchange value with others over the public mainnet. Besides the state channels, the governance is super important for, I think, every blockchain. So essentially how to decide on what's going to be the next software update of the system, which hard fork to mine on, or which release to discard, or which wallet maybe to publicly ban because of some controversials. So making decisions together in a publicly verifiable way where it's absolutely, without a doubt, written to the blockchain that certain people or entities with a stake in the system have voted for or against a proposal. This will make things like the block size debate in Bitcoin, which is going on for many years now, I think way shorter, possibly even obsolete. It's almost impossible to essentially find out what all these different online communities are thinking. Maybe the Reddit Bitcoin community thinks differently than the Bitcoin Talk community. And if you have it in a tamper-proof way on the blockchain, this is what you really want. And here we use it, this system, we use this for making decisions for the blockchain itself. But it could be also applied to other groups which are not necessarily blockchain related. So, for example, to let community votes. We had actually a pilot case with a digital party in Uruguay where they used this system to do internal party elections. And if you think about that, we live in such an instant and fluid and dynamic world, and that, like in Europe at least, we make every 4 or 5 years, we make 2 crosses on a piece of paper and call it democracy. I think the future will be more dynamic and people will have more participation, just generally. Let's move on to the next feature which we integrated. The oracles are also part of Sophia, the language. So Sophia generally enables you to use higher level concepts as part of the smart contract language. Soon also tokens will become part of the language. And with oracles, there's a very well-defined way how information like price information or weather data or football game results can be imported into smart contracts used to, for example, create peer-to-peer betting markets, prediction markets, or synthetic assets, other financial instrument derivatives, or insurance for farmers in remote areas where the traditional financial system does not reach to. It's probably also very interesting for India, like insurance for remote areas. By the way, if you become an Oracle data provider, you can ask for getting paid. So every time a smart contract uses your result, you'll get paid something. As a smart contract creator, you should ideally use several oracles. At the moment, there are not many oracles who you could use on Æternity Blockchain, but we're working on this, and Ideally, of course, the source of the information itself publishes the results to Æternity Blockchain. For the beginning, there will be probably intermediaries, which is, of course, not ideal. To the next big innovation in terms of usability is the Æternity naming system. The auction just launched. The .chain namespace got created, and actually the highest bidding name currently is block.chain. Apparently, I think this is a fairly recent screenshot, with 2,500 Æternity tokens as a current bid. This auction will run out in about 6-7 weeks from now, when there's no other person bidding a higher amount. Yeah. So, I mean, who types in IP addresses day to day? Nobody, right? IP addresses are kind of hidden. I mean, everybody uses them every day. Also, in the future, we will use public keys every day. We are probably already using it when you establish a HTTP connection. There's also cryptography involved, but you don't notice it. And with the naming system, you will be able to send funds, you will be able to send tokens to block.chain or any other name registered on Æternity Blockchain, as well as do public key exchange. Public keys are on the blockchain, so that you can establish encrypted communication and do private business, for example. I want to talk about the future, and here's a prediction that every co-owned object and shared resource of value will be eventually tokenized, and ownership and access will be tracked by blockchains. This will lead to a huge efficiency upgrade for the global society. Shared assets will become much more liquid and tradable on global markets, provided there's demands. For me, blockchain is the next step of globalization. Borders are increasingly disappearing, and we also travel easier and faster through the world. There's more innovation coming, like, for example, satellite internet networks, which will launch very soon. So within a couple of years from now, there will be essentially global broadband internet via satellites all around the world, combined with borderless finance and decentralized technology. This is super powerful, and this will, in my perspective, this will transform also nation states. One nation state which is very avant-garde, which is very ahead of the development, is Liechtenstein. We picked Liechtenstein because of the openness and the friendliness of the regulator and the government to do our token sale. And now with on January the 1st, the Liechtenstein Blockchain Act will become active, with which every right can be represented as a token with the so-called token container model. For example, ownership rights of assets, or for example of houses, of real estate, or IP, or utilities can be expressed as a token in a legally binding way from Liechtenstein, and then also be passported to all of the European Union. So this will become available in a legally compliant way in all the EU and European Economic Area from Liechtenstein. And this is huge. This is no other country is that far ahead, as far as I know. But don't judge me, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not researching too much how the current regulatory environment is. But from all what I heard from lawyers is that the Liechtenstein Blockchain Act is the most complete regulatory approach to the new blockchain economy. So everybody gets a token, probably not just one. We would like to hear from you, so we'll be also here today and tomorrow. Tomorrow there are two things happening about Æternity. One is the Starfleet talk by Luca, and the other thing is the Sophia smart contract development workshop with Milan, who is also over there. So if you want to know more about how to get accelerated with your startup or how to get your hands on coding, on the code, on the severe code, then watch out for the things, two things tomorrow. As well as if you don't talk to us today or tomorrow, the best way is probably to reach out to us in the forum if you have technical questions or if you have any other questions. We'd like you to post this in the forum because this way also other people can profit from your questions as well as from our answers. I would like to end my talk with a quote of Steve Jobs. I'm an optimist in the sense that I believe humans are noble and honorable. And some of them are really smart. I have a very optimistic view of individuals. How does this fit to blockchain technology? Well, in my eyes, blockchain technology is an enabler for individuals to have full control over their finances, over their identity, over their reputation, without that they need to have fear of governments or of other individuals who might want to essentially make them do something they don't want. So if you have full control over your finances, certain things like bank runs can't happen. Devaluation or like what happened with the highest notes here in India that they just got removed or replaced, cannot happen. It's empowering individuals, and if you think that individuals are generally good, this is a very powerful technology for humanity. Decentralized, public, open source, scalable blockchain technology. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah, got some time for questions, right?
Hi. I read that your consensus algorithm is a mixture of proof of work and proof of stake.
Yeah.
So can you explain how that works?
Right. So generally, we have proof of work, the so-called cuckoo cycle, which creates the order of the blocks, of the mined blocks. Then, I mean, the mined blocks have 3-minute block time. Every 3 minutes, essentially, on average, every 3 minutes, a new leader gets selected who can then publish 3-second micro blocks with transactions inside, of course, to make the network reach sooner consensus. Right now, this is just like one leader, but we imagine in the future through the mining. I mean, it's kind of like a decentralized random number generator. What you have, like the hash here. There will be then a random set selected of block producers until the next leader gets created through mining a block. So this is one way how we think that it's a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake approach. Although here, this part of proof of stake has been essentially implemented in the most simple way, meaning there's just one leader for 3 minutes and not a random set of leaders. Another thing how we think proof of stake can be interpreted is through voting, meaning you prove that you have a stake of the system to express your opinion, but as well as betting. So essentially you bet on the outcome of the vote, and this is kind of like a self-influencing thing, or both sides influence each other. And of course, if you bet, you can also lose, but you can win. So if you essentially, I mean, prediction markets have shown that they're incentivizing people to reveal private information so that the public can make a better decision together. And yeah, if you look at this, it's also a way of doing a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake approach.
Thank you.
How does the Æternity method reduce the chain load?
Excuse me, one time more?
So how does that Eternity method reduce the chain load?
The Eternity network register chain load?
Yeah.
I mean, blockchain, block, there are transactions inside, and there's average block time, you can count the transactions inside, and do the math, it's pretty straightforward. But they need to be inside the block, like on-chain transactions. We're talking about 117 on-chain transactions per second metered in a block. We can show you the proof.
It follows any data, it is any organized in data set like tree structure in there?
Sorry, one time more?
Like how data is organized in that blocks?
I don't understand, sorry.
Chain blocks are there, nodes.
Chain blocks?
Yes.
What chain blocks?
How data is organized?
Yes.
The data.
How data is organized in that blocks?
I mean, the blockchain is public. Like, you can download it, you can analyze it. There are blockchain explorers. You can look them up. You can go through the transactions. You can go through the blocks. Yeah.
Thank you.
My question is more towards design and implementation. So you mentioned you guys are using Erlang. So I just wanted to know, are you guys exploiting actor model for the scalability? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I cannot answer this question, but maybe Milan can.
So I wanted to know, are you guys exploiting actor model of Erlang for scalability? Actor model, concurrency actor model.
So Erlang is highly concurrent language, and answering your question, the core team is working on implementing everything they can possibly to use from Erlang to speed up the Eternity protocol.
Hi, it's nice to hear about Eternity. When I was going through the website, I could find there are 3 VMs in Eternity, and I was very curious to know why we are one. I could see you have portability with Solidity, and also I could find you're introducing naming and oracles, and one of the stated purposes is bringing digital physical data verification in the ledger. Are they connected, or is it only for smart contract interoperability, having 3 different VMs? What would be the design objective of having 3 type of VMs?
So, actually, there's even another one, fourth one, which also get abundant. So when we started, like the current team, the Erlang developers, we developed a rather naive approach of smart contracts with essentially doing a slightly better implementation of the EVM. This was the second virtual machine, which also launched on the mainnet. We noticed during the process that we can do much better, or the developers who were involved noticed that they can do much, much better. And we still wanted to launch, so we didn't want to get further delayed. So we shipped first this working virtual machine while the developers implemented the FATE, the Fast Eternity Transaction Engine. And they had also, or still have, a concept for the so-called Varna language, which is a language without Turing completeness. This way, you can essentially pay the gas when you send a transaction, or you know how much it will cost to execute upfront, which has lots of benefits in many use cases. yeah, currently this has been kind of paused, the development of the Varna language.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which VM will be available on the state channel? Will it be 3 VMs available on the state channel?
So we plan to use the governance system to essentially let the community vote to make deployment on the old virtual machine impossible, like not supported anymore. Although we will need to maintain the AEVM as long as there are contracts for it.
Sorry, I have one more question. In your presentation on the website, it says the contracts are deployed only when there is a conflict or disagreement. So what would be am I correct? Is that understanding correct?
Actually, not exactly correct. So the contract stays private as long as there's no disagreements. In case you essentially close this smart contract with mutual agreement, then you still keep the contract private. You don't publish it.
Okay, then for the contract and for the objects, so will we have 3 Merkle trees in the case of Ethereum, or will it be a single Merkle tree and a state function?
So there are more Merkle trees than in Ethereum with in the Æternity Blockchain state. For example, also for Oracle questions, answers, names, and other things.
Wow, interesting. So we'll have more state tries, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think this is quite good for sharding as well, but maybe just a side effect.
I think we can call it off.
Any more questions?
We can take it offline.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.